Thanks for tuning into our seller interview series. Up today, we've got an e-commerce dropshipping site in the 3D printing niche. The site makes just over $2,000 per month in net profit. The listing number on this one is 40375. Now, we do these interviews to give potential buyers more information about both the seller and the sites they're looking to purchase, and we hope these insights are helpful for you in making a buying decision. We've got the seller Ben with us today to go through the business, cover everything from niche selection to traffic and monetization. Thanks for coming on, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
All right, man, let's do a quick summary of the site. It was built in March 2015, so it's relatively new. The monthly revenue on this site is a little over $19,000, $19,208 a month. That's a 3-month average. Expenses come in at $17,182 for a net profit of $2,026, and that's over the last 3 months average. It's built on the Shopify platform. We've listed this at a 23x multiple, which means 23 times the monthly net profit, and the margin on this one is about 10%. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Cool. All right, man. So I got to say, before we even get started, I really love this niche. I think it's future thinking, a forward thinking niche for someone that's looking to get into e-commerce. I really like the site. I think it's interesting purchase, and I'm really glad we were able to bring this one on board for our buyers. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background in kind of building and running websites and online businesses? How did you get into all this?
So if I go back a few years, I think I jumped in the way a lot of people jump in. I was going to start a clothing line. So I was really big into mixed martial arts at the time, and Joe Rogan of the UFC, a commentator for them, when people would get knocked out, Joe would say, "Oh, you got hit right on the button." I was like, this is my idea, you know? So I built a onthebuttonfightgear.com, and I started sponsoring local fighters, and we actually ended up getting screwed over by a guy who made a whole lot of money. He took the name and started sponsoring big name fighters, and basically told us, nothing we can do about it. So rather than try to sue him for a ton of money, we just cut our losses and backed out of there. So I didn't do anything for a few years after that, and I started listening to your podcast. I started listening to a few other podcasts, and I started coming across this thing called dropshipping. I looked into it. Some people are doing the arbitrage thing, selling on Amazon and listing from Walmart and selling on eBay, and I just didn't think that was for me. And I stumbled across Anton Kraly. He makes a course called Dropship Lifestyle, and he seemed like a straight up guy. I did a bunch of research, and that's how I began my e-commerce journey, was by buying his course.
That's cool, man. Yeah, Anton from Dropship Lifestyle, he's been a guest on our podcast. We're buddies. I hang out with him when I'm in Saigon, and really cool. I think he's created a great, kind of intro course for people looking to get into dropshipping. It's interesting you had a brand in the MMA space and then pivoted to dropshipping. You mentioned the arbitrage game of the eBay, buy on eBay, sell on Amazon, or buy on Amazon, I think is actually the way to do it. Buy on Amazon and sell on eBay. I looked into that too. It's weird. It's really weird that people pay more for goods, from what I can see, on eBay than they do Amazon. But yeah, that's just an arbitrage game. The margins are going to be really low, and it doesn't seem like a very sustainable business, whereas a dropshipping site is an asset, right?
Right. And so I looked into the eBay part of it, and then once I started this whole journey, I had met someone who's doing the Amazon side of it, where he's, listing from Walmart and Home Depot and listing on his Amazon account. Obviously, Amazon's a very hot channel. People think they're getting the best prices. They're getting the best shipping, free shipping over this amount, whatever. So I know people doing pretty well with that, but like you said, there's no longevity in it. It's not something that's going to be sustainable. It's not, you could scale it, but where do you go from there, Well,
let's talk about how your site or your asset makes money. So, for anyone not familiar with dropshipping, basically you put a product up there on your site, people buy it, they send you the cash. Once you have the cash, you can then take a portion of that cash, send it to the manufacturer, and they will ship it to your customer under your brand name. So it looks like it's coming from you, and you're not, out a bunch of cash flow like you would with e-commerce business, where you have to buy the stuff from China, have it shipped over, and then eventually sell it. So it's great for cash flow in terms of dropshipping versus a traditional e-commerce approach. Tell me a little bit about kind of your customers. You get sales on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. What does that look like?
Starting out, it was a bit slower. Again, this is my first dive into this whole thing, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But, I took what I learned from the course, and I attempted to learn more and more as I went. And so I started off with, a sale a week or a little more than that. And then there's one specific item I didn't get on board right away that's super hot in many different spaces. It's not just in the 3D printing space. So I took that on, and that started bringing in more sales. But in the beginning, it was more like once a week. Now, obviously December was crazy. But leading up to that, it was pretty much at least one a day or one every other day for sure.
So why, you went from MMA, why did you get into this niche in particular? Was there, I know, niche selection is a big piece, especially for drop shipping businesses. What attracted you to this niche?
So just to be clear, the MMA thing was probably like 4 years ago. And honestly, when the millionaire guy came in there and kind of, did his thing and bumped us out of there, that kind of left me sulking for a while. So it took a while to get into wanting to do something else. And then when I took the course, Dropship Lifestyle, Anton kind of has a criteria on how to pick a niche. So I originally had picked one niche, and then somebody who's also in the course became ill and offered his site up for sale. It happened to be this site. There wasn't much going on with it at all. He kind of had the framework done, and I was like, well, I really want to get into that niche. That was in my top 5 of things to do. So I jumped on it. I bought it for a couple $100. He had a couple suppliers on board, and then I just grew it from there and transformed it to what it is now. So.
Cool. So you bought basically a blank site. Someone had just created a site but wasn't able to move forward with it and started expanding that. That's pretty cool. It's kind of a leap in terms of, you like the niche, but, you don't know how well it's going to perform. It wasn't one that you came up with on your own. Do you have other sites that you created, like your first site that you created on your own, or did you just buy this one and run with it?
So I had the other one, but there's a point where you need to call suppliers and get them on board, and I got really scared. So this one came up, and I think he had 4 suppliers on board. There was one really big one and 3 no names. And I was like, here we go. Here's my chance to avoid calling these suppliers. So I snatched, I think I paid $400 for it. And the big guy dropped me immediately as soon as I bought it. So I was like back at square one, and I had to get over my fears. So I knew this niche would be huge. I don't know if it'll be huge today or tomorrow or next year, but I knew it was going to be huge at some point. So I jumped into it and I got all the big name suppliers on board and just ran with it.
Cool, Ben. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about why you're selling it. I mean, you could just keep it and continue growing it out. Why are you selling it today?
So there's actually a few different reasons. One is that I'm moving into Amazon FBA, but I do want to continue drop shipping. I'm not sure if this is the one I want to move with. I definitely want to get into FBA. You and I were at the same conference this year in Thailand, and Michael Coughlin and Nathan Richer did a presentation there about their FBA journey, and it got me really excited. It's something I wanted to get into. I think it's something you can scale a lot more than you can a drop shipping store. But at the same time, I got into this whole dropshipping thing from listening to your podcast and listening to others where you could build these stores to a certain point, flip them, move on to the next one. I think you can get a store to the point where I'm at with this store pretty easily. So I'm ready to sell. I'm ready to move on and try to do it with another store and move into FBA. And the other reason is I want to be out of debt. I want to have 0 debt whatsoever. I don't want to owe anybody. So selling the store would just remove that cloud from mine and my wife's life. You know what I mean? Just paying off every single debt we've ever had and not living the American credit card lifestyle anymore.
Gotcha, man. Okay, so I know that FBA businesses, as you mentioned, can be great for scaling. I know some people that have really built some up. One guy I know in particular, I think is on track to do like 10 million this year in sales. So they're doing really well. One of the problems with these types of businesses is they're very cash flow intensive. So it makes sense why you want to sell this business because you're going to need that cash going into the FBA business, at least until the point where you get to some amount of scale where you can start to pull out a profit. Like early on, it doesn't make sense because you're just trying to grow, right?
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense for the cash. You're looking to pay off some debt, and then you're going to need it for your Amazon FBA business. One thing that, a potential buyer may want to know is, are you going to be in the same niche? So are you planning on doing FBA with 3D printers, or are you going to go after something else completely?
Yeah, so the FBA product is in somewhere completely different. Michael and Nathan kind of gave me some criteria on how to find a product, and it had nothing to do with the same criteria as I did for dropshipping. It was completely different. Amazon tells you what's selling, so I just went out there, found what's selling and where there's low competition, and that's where I'm headed.
Gotcha, Ben. Okay, so let's talk about the site history. Now, it was built in March 2015, which is relatively recent. Tell me about the trajectory of the business, the first few weeks, the first few months. Was it like an instant winner as soon as you bought it from the guy, or did it take a while to kind of, build up?
Yeah, so like I said, I bought it in March, and I'm not sure if it was beginning or end of March. It was sometime in March, and he had one really big supplier and 3, kind of no-name suppliers on there, and the big one dropped me right away. So it wasn't like I was up and running ads immediately. I think he had ran ads for a little bit, but he didn't have any sales. So I took the time to get more suppliers on board. I tried to make the site look a little bit better. I tried to get more products on the site. So I didn't launch until the very end of April, actually. So I think it was the last week of April. I got a sale in there. I sold to a university right off the bat, and then May wasn't super productive. And I'm just looking at the P&L that I gave you guys. Yeah, it wasn't super productive. And it took a little while to kind of get things going. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand AdWords. I didn't understand how to send traffic. This was my complete first stab at it. You know what I mean? So if someone's looking at the P&L, if they've deposited or whenever you guys show the P&L, they'll kind of see the trajectory, how it moves gradually upwards.
So, you're doing some paid traffic on this. I'm going to start off. You're doing the paid traffic via Google. It's called Google Product Listings. Are you still doing that today? How much of your expenses per month are going toward paid traffic?
Yeah, that's pretty much the only advertising I'm doing currently. Again, in that course, that's what Anton teaches, is to get all of your traffic from there. That's the way you can pop right up to the top of the listing. Competing with them took me a little while to understand, but I'm pretty much the first listing you see on Google PLA for almost every product, or at least the ones that are highly converting. It doesn't cost that much. Zipping through here to look, I'd say anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500 is roughly what I spend on advertising per month.
Okay, gotcha. So we've actually got expenses listed at, on average, for the last 3 months, a little over $17,000. This doesn't sound like an odd question, but can you put the inventory purchase and those ads, you can put them on credit cards, right? No problem?
Yeah, I put them on credit cards and just pay it off. Yep.
Awesome. I just did a podcast interview with the guys over at Broaders, and, they deal with rewards credit cards and stuff, and they were talking about sites you could buy that would be, let's say heavy inventory costs or like high spend. They actually look for things that are high spend. And this is one of those kind of like lower margin, high spend businesses where if you could put an additional $17,000 on a credit card every month, you're just racking up the points, right? So in terms of free travel, it could be amazing. So I think for anyone that's kind of living abroad and doing a bunch of travel and kind of into the travel hacker stuff, this is a potentially good pickup for a reasonable price. A lot of times, businesses with high spend are awfully expensive, but with a lower margin, I think this is doable for someone to take over and run. So that would make sense. All right, man. So let's talk about what you did with the site. Was there anything you did that just worked, that just, with this site, you tried it out or you're testing it out and it was just a big winner?
Yeah, so when I originally bought it, it was on a non-paid theme, just a free theme from Shopify. Some of them are okay. After seeing, probably 100 sites by now dealing with the course I'm in, I think I know one or two people that have a decent looking free theme from Shopify, and moving to a paid theme was huge. It made a very big difference immediately in sales, moving from a free theme to a paid theme.
That's cool. What's weird with themes is that some e-commerce sites look like crap, right? Like they just look like they were made 10 years ago, but they convert like crazy. And so I'm always like, that would such a better site if it was on a better theme or if it looked better. But, I end up talking to the e-commerce store owner and they're like, nope, tried it, spent $20,000 on a redesign or whatever, bought a new theme, and it just did not work. People trust this older look. But, my guess is, or my hunch is that with 3D printing, you're dealing with a more tech-savvy audience, and so having a better theme might make more sense than some, 2002-looking website, right?
Right.
Do you think that's a true statement, or do you think there was the other theme just really bad for user experience and that kind of thing?
Probably a lot of both. So like I said, the free themes I've seen that work well, they have all the pertinent information possible right in your viewing area, where the free theme I was dealing with, the page break, which is where you go from your header and your logo into the actual product and the listing, the page break was almost 3/4 of the way down the page. So when somebody splashed on the product page, all they're seeing is this huge logo up top and no pertinent information. So immediately by switching themes, it brought everything all the way up to the top. It's just a floating header that always comes with it. And it brought the page to life, really. And the pictures popped more. The theme is called Retina, so it's meant for amazing pictures. So you can show people, different prints and intricacies. You can really zoom in on the pictures. I think that's what helped a lot.
Nice. And people are looking to purchase, right? So they don't want kind of all the fluff. They don't care about your logo. They want to look at the products. They want to be able to, choose, and they want that front and center.
Right.
Tell me something you've done with the site that you wanted to test out that just didn't work. Something that you were maybe surprised about or just ultimately didn't make you more money or didn't get you more traffic.
That's a tough one. Before I knew what I was doing with ads, I spent it in the wrong way. So I just cranked them up. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't start weeding out the bad traffic that Google sends you right away. So there was a point where I just cranked up the ads thinking, well, then that'll crank up the sales, but it doesn't quite work that way. So I really had to formulate the targeting a lot better.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's get into traffic and earnings. Give me a breakdown on the type of traffic. Is there any organic traffic, any referral traffic, direct or social traffic, or is it all paid traffic?
There is some referrals here and there, but the majority of it comes from either Google PLAs or Google remarketing. I took a stab at Facebook. It's hard to set up dynamic ads through Shopify. That's not something I looked deeply into, but it wasn't something I could just set up easily. So I tried like Perfect Audience, just running a general ad on Facebook. Nothing really came of that, but I would say the majority of the traffic comes from Google product listing ads and remarketing, which is the dynamic remarketing. So they're seeing the product they looked at and just immediately coming right back to a product page.
Okay, cool. Now, with the earnings, are most of the earnings through selling 3D printers, or are they, accessory products, extension products?
almost everything is through the main products.
Okay, great.
I don't really sell a lot of accessories.
Now, with the types of customers, we talked a little bit about before we got on, and you said there are some individual buyers that come along and they'll buy, the printers, but then you also have like the educational institutions, schools, and colleges that are buying the 3D printers, for use at their school. What's the breakdown on that? Do you think like half bought by individuals, 80%? Like what are we looking at?
So some of the accessories, I didn't go through one by one to get this list, but somebody actually asked that who inquired about the site already. So I kind of broke it down where it was like May was 3 schools, June was 1 school, July there was no schools, September was 2 schools, October was 2 schools. There is relatively the same amount of schools and businesses, mostly consumer, but the majority of the revenue is going to come from those big orders from schools and businesses.
Gotcha. Okay. So what percentage of revenue do you think? 70%? 80%?
I guess I'd have to sit down to figure it out. I'd probably say the months where the school orders came in was probably 75% of the revenue that month.
Okay, great. Let's talk about content on the site. Like, how much content is there currently? How much are you adding on a monthly basis?
That is something I've never done. I set up a couple blogs. The difficulty is finding someone who knows what they're talking about. I can't just outsource this for $5 on Upwork and expect to get a well-written article about 3D printing. It's something I really struggled with this site, was finding someone to write about it, find someone to answer phones that knows what they're talking about. It's not the easiest niche for outsourcing.
And it's not a niche that you like personally love either, right? I mean, it's not like you're way into 3D printing. So, sitting down who understand 3D printing now and know the products, it might be a bit of a challenge for you day in, day out to write the content. So someone that is actually into the space, that really digs it, may have a better time in terms of coming up with content ideas and kind of knocking that out.
Yeah, and I think there's quite a few blogs out there already that do a really good job with that. So maybe you could reach out to them, maybe just do banner advertising that way, and then, at the same time use their stuff on your site. It'd be hard to reach out and find.
That's another opportunity to reach out to them, see if you can buy their site, or as you mentioned, advertise on their site. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, so this isn't a real content heavy site. How many SKUs do you have? How many products do you have?
I think I did that as well. I want to say there's 207 SKUs listed on my Google Merchant Center currently.
Okay, great. And are you writing like content descriptions for those or product descriptions, or are you getting that from the manufacturer? Where do you get the content for those?
Originally it was copy and paste. I did do a little bit in there sales wise, and then I reached out to actually the guy who built the site in the first place. I reached out to him. He's now a copywriter. He's well again. I reached out to him and he went through and rewrote every description. So they are all unique, at least partially unique, if not all unique for every product.
Gotcha.
All the main products, I should say. None of the accessories are rewritten.
Yep. Okay. So let's talk about opportunities. We already got into that briefly, when we were saying, there are, I think Facebook, right? You tried Facebook. It didn't work for you. You weren't able to get it working. There's some opportunity there, another paid traffic. If you were going to keep the site, if for the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, you were looking to grow it out, what paths would you say are the highest likelihood for success? Which paths would you take to grow the site out?
So there's certainly a couple I would look at. One would be actually Facebook. There's one product that, you don't make a lot of money on, but they sell like absolute crazy. They sell a ton. Like the one supplier I have has the number listed so you can kind of see how fast they're moving through them. I'm only selling a very small portion, where if you took half of that market, you could do really well. And I think Facebook would be the perfect place to advertise, Facebook or Instagram, for this product. It's something I had looked into, same conference we were at, Justin. The guy's name is Kim Barrett. He did a presentation on Facebook. I had spoke to him about possibly setting something up. It's just something I never moved forward with. And then also the schools. I was looking back. We talked about this prior to the recording here. Cal Fullerton is the one I missed out on. All schools want net 30. That's just the way it is. They offer you a purchase order. Obviously, your margins are slightly smaller on these school orders because they're looking for bids, but you can win them. You can easily make decent money as long as you can support these net 30 terms. So I wasn't able to offer a school, yeah, sure, I'll float 20 grand for you for a couple months. This is my first stab at things. I just don't have the bankroll for that sort of thing. I looked into people to buy these purchase orders and they wanted, 4 or 5%. And it just didn't seem worth it to me. So if somebody is out there that has the bankroll to cover these purchase orders and can approach these schools, I think they're going to do really well.
See, buyers like to hear those types of things. They're like, look, I've got cash. I could have gotten that deal done. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's too bad for you, but I could take this over and own that deal. You see it with FBA businesses too, where, guys are like, look, I just didn't have the cash to buy enough inventory, so I had to go without product for a couple of months. Like, I wouldn't have had that problem. I'd like to buy this business because you clearly don't know how to do inventory management. So
the one I was speaking about in particular, Cal Fullerton, they were like, oh, you have the winning bid. I'm going to run through all the paperwork and then we'll ask you for your W-9. And then I was like, well, what kind of terms are you looking for? And then they said that 30. And I said, I think it was 7. I have it pulled up here. Yeah, $17,000 order. I'm like, I don't think that's going to work, And they said, well, that's a deal breaker. And they just basically hung up with me at that point. So I think someone who could step in there and could handle these things, they're going to do extremely well. And the more popular manufacturers that I carry that are mostly going to schools, they're actually referring me because they understand, hey, let's send some more business to our resellers. They need 4 bids anyway. So that's where a lot of the bids are coming from too, is they're just sending them to you already. So.
Yeah. So there's always the content marketing approach too, in terms of opportunities for growth. And this is one of those, content marketing opportunities that gives you the opportunity to wow people, right? This is a wowable product. And especially when you look at like the fringe, the bleeding edge of this industry, it is amazing, right? They're doing some amazing things. And so I think that's a great opportunity for someone who's into the space, who digs it, to really create some awesome, really engaged content. Now that's a much longer term play. You're not going to get traction on that content in the first couple of months, most likely, but long term and down the road, I think that would be a great move. You could buy blogs that already have it, or you could create it yourself, or you could do both of those actually. Let's talk a little bit about the risks with this site. I mean, you're not getting really any organic traffic to speak of. So in terms of, Google updates, that's not a big deal. One is that this is a very growing niche. So there's, the chance that you're going to deal with a ton of competitors. They're already getting into the space. There's going to be a lot more that get into that. I see that as a risk. What do you see as some of the risks for the industry, or for this site in particular?
The trajectory of the growth might not be as fast. I think it's going to be huge in a few years. It could be huge next year, but you just don't know when it's going to blow up. As far as the competitors, some of the suppliers were really difficult to get on board, so I'm not too concerned about that. I think this site has an edge up compared to other sites. But yeah, the risk is just how slow it could be. But the potential is so huge. Just like, it's kind of my baby. It's my first site, and it's hard to let go for that reason. I think if you could dedicate the time and take those avenues that we've been talking about, it's huge, but it's not going to be tomorrow, It's good to have a moat around your castle, right? And so I think the moat is, there is some difficulty in getting the suppliers on board. I'd actually recommend to whoever buys this, and if they go back and listen to this, if they listen to this beforehand, that they try to get with even more suppliers, try to get those suppliers locked up, because I think as the industry grows, and this is a rising tide, that those suppliers are going to lock down even further. So if you can establish those relationships and start doing some business with them, you can get in before they're going to start, shutting other people out. So I think there's opportunity there. Let's talk a little bit about the work required on the site, Ben. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? So aside from when the businesses or the schools call and you really need to do some direct sales with them, there isn't a whole lot going on here. I mean, I wake up, I capture and fulfill the orders. I enter the tracking numbers for the orders on the previous day, and that's pretty much it. If I wanted to hop on live chat all day long, I could, or I could set it on my phone where it would alert me if somebody was popping in. I don't really get a lot of phone calls, and like I said, most of them are, is something in stock? Is it shipping? When will it ship? How long will it take to ship? And then the occasional, like I said, the business or the school. But a lot of times they're coming at you with an email first, letting you know, hey, let's set up a time to talk. So day to day, there isn't a lot. It's pretty easy to get complacent with this store.
Gotcha. So you've got the live chat set up. You could turn it on if you wanted to. You can obviously operate that on your phone if you wanted to. Don't on a regular basis. You're saying you get some questions or some calls about shipping and how quickly it's going to ship and how long it's going to take. You said most of the schools, and those are the big orders, you said most of the schools email first to set up a time to talk. So I think, there's going to be some requirement there. You're going to have to get on the phone with the schools and try to get those deals, and they are the bigger orders. So I think that's both going to be required. You're going to have to talk to those people, and then it's also an opportunity in that you can, aggressively target them more so than you've done so far. Is there any technical knowledge in terms? It's on a Shopify platform that's really straightforward. I guess the Google product listings, someone who's not familiar with the Dropship Lifestyle course or that process would probably need to talk to you about, how you do that on a regular basis and then how to maintain that going forward. Someone with some other paid traffic experience, I think, has some opportunities to grow this out in ways that you don't know, right? They're Facebook experts and you're not, so they may have a way to run those ads on Facebook so that the Facebook that just crushes it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the PLAs would be pretty well set up. I'm obviously just going to transfer that over to the new guy. There's some things I do every day, just moving, new negative keywords into the group. I have a lot of the products that convert well. I'm already bidding high on. I could show you exactly how you can figure out what your competitor's bidding and just barely jump ahead of them if you want to be the first one showing up for that. But technically, not a lot going on there. If you can run Shopify, if you can run Google PLAs, great. You can handle it the way it is. And like you said, if you have knowledge of Facebook or some other advertising platform, who knows where you could take this.
Let me ask you some additional questions that buyers are always interested in. The first one would be, would you be willing to commit to a non-compete? They may worry that, you're going to create another site in the same space a couple months later. Would you be willing to sign that non-compete for a new buyer?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. And then, I don't think there's a ton of support needs here, but I would want to, as a buyer, I would want to make sure that I've got your support for the next 30 days or so as I transition the site, maybe get on a phone call or two and do some emails or Skype back and forth. Is that something you're open to?
Yeah, and like I said, with this being my baby, I want to make sure whoever gets it has everything under perfect control. I'm probably over worrying, if anything, and this is my first process through selling it as well, so I'm probably going to give too much support, so hopefully you don't mind me calling you at the same time. Oh yeah, don't forget about this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not opposed to answering emails and Skype calling for 30 days or whatever they need to get going.
Awesome, Ben. And just to get an idea, in terms of the number of sales, how many total products are sold every month on average to get that, $17 or the $19,000 in gross?
So let me zip through here. Do you guys list the P&L prior to the deposit?
I'm not sure if it's on this listing or not.
Well, either way, I can look through it. Like I said, it started off pretty slow, so it was like 4 and then 7. I got that one product on board that brought it up over into the 20s, and then it was out of stock for the next 12 months, so I only had 5 orders again. And then, it went up into the 30s and in the 40s, and then December was just nuts. I had over 100 orders. The majority of them were that small product that everybody kind of wanted for Christmas this year.
Gotcha, okay. All right, yeah, man, Christmas, all the purchases are going crazy. We had Amazon sites that were just going through the roof, so I hear ya. One other question, are you open to a split or an earn-out? Now, obviously, if you can get 100% cash up front in your pocket right away, that would be ideal. But if someone came along and said, look, I'm willing to give you 70% up front, and I'll give you another 30% at the end of 30 days after training, or they want to do 60% up front and they'll give you 10% per month over the next 4 months. Is that something you'd be open to?
I guess that's something I'd have to ask you some questions about. Something I'm not familiar with this whole process. So if it's advantageous to both me and the buyer, sure, I don't see why not. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm not trying to offload it. Whatever works out best for the buyer and for myself, I'm more than willing to do.
Yeah, normally you see that on larger sites, so like mid-6-figure sites, you'll see some kind of like earn-outs or some kind of like holdback for training, especially for sites that require quite a bit more training that, are a bit more to grasp, to take over. I don't think that's the case here, and at your price point, I don't think you're going to see a ton of that. You're more likely to just get the cash straight up, and because you might have multiple interested parties, someone that comes in and says, hey, I want to give you 60% and pay the rest off over 6 months, is going to lose out to the guy willing to give you, 100% right now. So
right.
There's more competition at that level. So it's probably not something you're going to deal with, but just, want buyers to be aware. And if that's their preferred method, they can at least talk to you about it and see if there's a good fit.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, man, let's do a quick wrap up. The niche, as we mentioned before, is 3D printing. As an e-commerce site, was built in March 2015. The monthly revenue on this, $19,208 a month. The expenses are just over $17,000, putting net profit at just over $2,000 a month. And again, that's a 3-month average. It's a Shopify site. We're listing this at a 23x multiple, meaning 23 times the net profit is the listing price. You've got a 10% margin. As we talked about, I think it's a great opportunity for someone that, has spent on credit cards and wants to kind of bump their spend and get, a whole bunch of points and miles out of it. If you could, Ben, give me your best pitch over the next 30 seconds on why you think someone should purchase this site.
I think if they're ready to come in and put a little work in the areas that I was lacking, I think the potential of this site is huge. So I've laid the groundwork for you, and I really think somebody can really scale this up. It's just not where I'm at, and I think other people have expertise that I don't have. So if they wanted to come in and grow this thing, I don't see why they couldn't. The industry is only going to get huge over the next few years.
Awesome, Ben. I totally agree with you on the industry. I'm really hot on the niche. I think it's really interesting. I think this is a good buy for someone looking for a site they'd like to hold for 2 to 5 years, because I think the industry is going to see tremendous growth. And if you can just be a part of it, right, just, rising tide floats all boats. And I think that there'll be some benefit for the buyer. For anyone listening to this that wants more information about the site we're talking about, let's say you're on YouTube or something, you can click a link in the show notes, and that'll take you over to the listing page for the site, and you can get more information. Again, the listing number is 40375. If you're on the listing page and listening to this and you would like, much more detailed information about the site, including the URL, all of the earnings statements, the traffic, everything. You can pay a refundable deposit and go to the top of the screen and click on the button that says deposit, and we will send you all of that information so you can do your due diligence and make an informed buying decision, making sure the site is the right purchase for you. Thank you so much for listening to this, and thanks again, Ben, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.